Hey guys, tonight we slip into the sun-baked world of ancient Egypt. Not the world of pharaohs and golden tombs, but the world of the people who made it all possible. You're not royalty. You're not even a priest. You're just you. A tired farmer, born into the dust and routine of life on the Nile's edge. And trust me, you probably won't survive this day without begging for shade, sleep, or at least one less mosquito bite. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And don't forget to comment where you're listening from and what time it is, because I bet it's not 4 a.m. like it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes open just before the first light seeps through the thatched window. There's no rooster crowing, just the distant murmur of water and the groaning stretch of your own back. The inside of your mud brick home is cool and still, but you know it won't last. It never does. The heat will come. It always comes. You're lying on a simple straw mat. No cushion, no pillow. Maybe a folded scrap of linen under your head if you're lucky. You hear someone coughing in the next room. Your mother, or maybe your youngest sibling. It's hard to tell. Everyone sleeps in the same one-room space. A pot clinks. The fire's already being stirred. You stretch your legs, roll your shoulders, and prepare yourself mentally. Another day, just like the last, and the one before that. You reach for your tunic, stiff, sun-bleached linen frayed at the edges, and slip it over your head. It's scratchy, but light, and it'll be drenched in sweat before the morning is half over anyway. Out in the small courtyard, the clay stove is glowing with coals from last night's fire. You warm your hands briefly, even though you know you'll be cursing the heat within the hour. Your wife, or maybe it's your mother, hands you a piece of flatbread. It's dry. Hard enough to crack a tooth, but you soften it with a splash of date beer. Breakfast of champions. There's no ceremony to mornings here, just motion. A few mumbled words. A quick slap on the back to wake the younger ones. Maybe a quiet moment to check on the goats or gather the eggs if the hens have bothered to lay any. You peek inside the grain jar. Still some left. Enough to get through another week if you're careful. Outside, the world is hushed. The sky hasn't turned gold yet, but you can feel its weight waiting just beyond the horizon. A thin mist curls off the Nile in the distance, and the reeds sway with ghost-like movements in the pre-dawn breeze. Even the flies haven't started buzzing yet. It's a brief window of peace, and you savor it just for a breath. Your tools lean against the wall. A wooden hoe, curved from months of use. A sickle with flint teeth, chipped and uneven. A basket, mended twice, maybe thrice. You gather them into your arms like old friends, ones who demand everything from you but never talk back. As you step out into the still sleepy village, you pass by neighbors doing the same. No one really talks at this hour, just a nod, a shrug. You all know what the day holds. Words won't change that. A child runs by barefoot chasing a chicken. Someone's muttering about a cracked water jar. Someone else is already arguing with their wife. Life hums, low and inevitable. There's something oddly comforting about this sameness. The path you walk every day is carved in dust, in memory, in muscle. Past the shrine of Hathor, where someone left a handful of dates. Past the collapsed wall no one's bothered to repair. Past the tall sycamore tree with the owl that watches you like a silent god. And all the while, the sky begins to bloom. Pale blue pushing back the dark. Then streaks of orange, gold, red. The stars fade one by one, like shy witnesses retreating. You can almost feel Ra rising from his hidden boat, ready to drag the sun back across the sky. Again, you step over a small canal, empty now, but soon to be full when the Nile floods. Your sandals kick up dust, unless you've gone barefoot, which most do. One less thing to worry about. The path leads you to your field, marked with boundary stones you helped place years ago. It's your patch of land, granted by your father, worked by your grandfather, and probably by his father too. You stand there for a moment, looking out over the rows of dark earth. Some parts are dry and cracking. Others are still soggy from irrigation, and beyond it all, the river glints in the early light like a long, silent snake, a gift and a threat, depending on its mood. This is your canvas, and your prison. You drop your tools to the ground. A soft thud, the echo of work yet to begin. Your hands are already dirty, and you haven't done anything yet. You take a breath, deep and steady, and step into the soil. The day has begun. See time to move. Your body bends into motion without you thinking. The muscle memory of routine takes over. You step into your sandals, or you don't. Either way, your feet know every rock and thorn of the path ahead. You hoist the bundle of tools onto your shoulder and begin your slow walk to the fields. On the way, you pass the same 3 families you always do. The first is the old widow who never speaks, just stares from her doorway, eyes like 2 sunken beads in a leathered face. You nod. She doesn't. She never does. The second is the young couple with too many children. One is crying already, and it's barely morning. The mother tries to braid her daughter's hair while her husband chases a goat in circles. The third family is wealthier. You can tell by their home. Smooth walls, straight corners, painted even. Their eldest son is already on his way to train with a scribe in town. You both pass each other silently. He looks at you like he's already forgotten your name. You never told him anyway. Past them, the scent changes. Dust gives way to water. The reeds thicken. Mosquitoes begin their morning dances. A frog plops into the canal, disturbed by your footsteps. You keep walking. You've done this walk every day for as long as you can remember. Even in dreams, your feet carry you here. The fields spread out before you like a patchwork quilt. Greens, browns, and muddy grays stitched together by canals and boundaries. Yours is toward the middle, not too far from the river, not prime land, but not the worst either. You've seen worse, land that never drains right, or floods too late or not at all. This morning, as you approach, a heron startles and lifts off into the air, wings wide and slow. For a moment, you watch it go, neck tucked like it's holding secrets. You always liked herons. They seem like they're above it all, floating between heaven and mud. Lucky birds. You set your tools down at the edge of the plot. The soil is darker than usual, probably damp from the last irrigation. That's good. You won't need to dig too deep. But the weeds, Ra's sandals, the weeds have returned. Again. You sigh through your nose and bend over. The first tug sends a bolt of pain up your spine. It always does. That first movement, like waking an old enemy inside your body. As you work, you begin to hum. It's not a song anyone would recognize, just a low, rhythmic murmur passed down from someone who probably didn't survive as many seasons as you have. Your hands move in time with it. Pull, twist, drop, pull, twist, drop. Sometimes you think about what it would be like to stop. Just stand up, walk away, and keep walking until the Nile disappears behind you. Maybe go where the Nubians live, or even farther. But then you think about your wife, your children, the goat, the dry patch on the wall that needs fixing, and your feet just keep pulling weeds. A neighbor arrives on the edge of the next field. You give a tired wave. He nods back. No one speaks. There's nothing new to say. The sun is fully up now. It hangs like a heavy coin in the sky, not even pretending to be gentle. Sweat begins to trace thin lines down your temples. Your tunic darkens at the chest. The buzzing of flies intensifies. And then you hear a rustle, a soft clatter. You turn. A boy, maybe 10 or 11, is standing near your basket, holding something, one of your tools. You straighten slowly. It's your son, or your neighbor's son. They all look alike at this age. He looks at you and frowns. You dropped it, he says, holding out the hoe. You take it from him with a grunt of thanks and ruffle his hair. He grins and then runs off. Dust kicks up behind his heels. You go back to work. Historians still argue whether most farmers owned their land or worked it under temple contracts, but honestly, you don't care. It's your field because your hands bleed into it, because your back bows toward it, because when the Nile floods, it's your breath that holds, not the priest's. And so, the morning continues. One weed, one blister, one breath at a time. You trudge deeper into your field, each step pressing your heels into the earth like slow stamps of ownership. The morning air still holds a trace of coolness, but it's fading fast. Already the first beads of sweat trace down your spine beneath the linen tunic. The sun is climbing, and with it comes the familiar pressure, like an invisible hand pushing down on your shoulders. The path to your land isn't marked on any map. It's traced by memory and repetition, etched in grooves made by bare feet and dragging tools. Sometimes you think you could walk this stretch blindfolded. Maybe you have, half asleep from too many late nights or early starts. The trees, the stones, the sounds, they've all become old friends. Or more accurately, tired co-workers who never let you take a day off. As you walk, a few birds scatter from the edge of the canal, ibises with long beaks and loud opinions. One of them seems to give you a disapproving look. You smirk, just a little. Even the birds have thoughts about how slow you're moving. The landscape around you is calm in that heavy, waiting kind of way. The reeds are still, swaying only when the breeze remembers to move. The palms stand tall like temple guardians, motionless and baking in silence. The canal to your left gurgles with lazy water, its surface speckled with silt, leaves, and the occasional bubble that might be a frog, or something less friendly. A donkey brays in the distance. Someone curses. Then quiet again. You pass a small shrine, little more than a mud brick alcove with a smooth stone slab. A lump of bread rests on it, fresh enough to draw flies, but still intact. Someone made an offering to Renenutet, the goddess of harvest and nourishment. Or maybe it's for Osiris, the one they say dies and rises like the fields after flood. You pause, just for a moment, and nod. Not out of faith exactly, out of habit. Superstition maybe. You've seen too many years when the crops fail to take chances. As your field comes into full view, your pace slows. Not because you're tired yet, that'll come soon enough, but because you're assessing. It's a game of spot the problem. Which row has collapsed? Which ditch needs clearing? Which section dried out overnight? You squint against the sun and run through the silent inventory in your head. There's a part near the southern edge where the furrows have collapsed. Again. That section always gives you trouble. The water doesn't reach there easily, and when it does, it floods too quickly. Last year, you nearly lost a whole week's planting to that patch. Your boots, or your calloused feet if you're like most, sink slightly as you step into the softer edge of the soil. A toad hops lazily out of your way. You glance at the sky. Still time before the real heat kicks in, but not much. Your shadow grows shorter by the minute, creeping closer to your ankles like it's trying to climb back inside you. As you begin to walk the rows, the scent hits you again. A mix of wet earth, old grass, and something slightly sour. Maybe rotting vegetation. Maybe last week's lunch buried under the compost mound. You ignore it. Your nose has learned not to care. You pass a group of laborers, young men mostly, who share a larger field nearby. They're already breaking ground, shoulders rising and falling in rhythm, their laughter carrying faintly on the breeze. You envy them for a moment, not because of the youth, but because of the numbers. More hands mean faster work, less pain, fewer blisters. Your own hands tighten around your hoe. Historians still debate whether these farmers worked communally or on family plots, but you know your truth. This land is worked by your fingers, your sweat, your cracked nails. If the temple takes a portion, or the tax collector docks you for drought, that's a problem for another day. Today, you walk the rows and check the furrows. Some parts of the soil look healthy, dark, soft, and rich. Others are cracked like the skin on your heels. You stop. You grip the wooden handle of your hoe and sink the blade into the soil with the practiced rhythm of someone who's done this for years. Maybe forever. There's no warm-up stretch, no pep talk, Just movement, deliberate, steady, and deeply quiet. You don't need to speak. The ground doesn't care about words. The tool digs in with a dull thunk. The earth gives way grudgingly, clumped together in thick, damp chunks. You lift, twist, and drop the blade again. It lands just to the left of the last mark, forming a row that only vaguely resembles straightness. Precision is for scribes. Out here, progress is measured in blisters and how quickly the sun rises above your eyebrows. You're sweating already. The breeze is gone now, replaced by that growing wall of heat pressing down from above. You pause, push the back of your hand across your forehead, and flick the sweat onto the ground. A minor offering. Ra accepts. Behind you, your shadow is shrinking. That's the thing about farming in Egypt. The sun doesn't just rise. It climbs like a god on fire, demanding your attention, your respect, and preferably your shade. You glance up at it. It glares back. No clouds, of course. There never are this time of year. Just endless blue, flat and merciless. Your hands are already dusted in soil. Bits of dry skin cling to the haft of the hoe, where calluses have cracked open. You ignore the sting. Pain is part of the process. It lets you know you're still working, still alive. You shift your grip and keep going, dragging the blade through the softest patches first. You've learned not to fight the tough spots too early. They'll wait. They always wait. You work in silence, but not solitude. Around you, the land speaks its own quiet language. The rustle of reeds in the canal, the distant croak of a frog hidden in wet shade, the scrape of someone else's plow across a neighboring plot. Every now and then you hear voices, men laughing, women calling to children, someone shouting at a donkey. These sounds aren't distractions. They're lifelines. Reminders that you're not the only one in this unrelenting routine. You pause to stretch your back. It arches with a familiar ache, sharp and low like the memory of an old fight. You roll your shoulders and rotate your wrists, joints popping like tiny drums in a forgotten parade. And then, right back to it. You change tools. The hoe is fine for the topsoil, but the tangled roots need something sharper. You grab the sickle, its flint teeth worn smooth in places. A younger version of you might have tried to sharpen them, but now you just accept the dullness. It's slower, but quieter. Less risk of a chipped shard cutting your hand wide open. You've bled enough for these fields. You move along the far row now where the reeds press in close. The sickle whispers through the tall grass, pulling and slicing in the same motion. It's meditative, in a strange way. You begin to hum again. Not really a song, more like a memory of one. Something your grandfather sang when he was too tired to stand. You think about him sometimes. His face, how it cracked when he smiled, how he used to carry you on his shoulders after harvest festivals. He worked this land before you, and probably hated it just as much. But he laughed more, you think? Maybe that's the trick, finding ways to laugh while your hands fall apart. A buzz near your ear pulls you out of the memory. A gnat, or maybe a fly. You swat blindly. It dances just out of reach, mocking you. You sigh and return to the row. It'll be back. They always are. Historians still argue whether farmers in ancient Egypt had consistent tool access or borrowed them communally. But in your experience, a broken tool is your problem. The village has a woodworker, yes, but he's slow, and your best sickle disappeared last season. Someone borrowed it. Forgot to return it. You've borrowed things too. That's how it works. Quiet little thefts that balance out over time. You dig deeper now. The sun is now in full command of the sky, beating down on you like an overseer without a voice, but with all the authority in the world. Every surface glows too brightly to look at. Blades of grass shimmer like they're made of glass, and even the dirt itself seems to shine. You squint beneath your brow and drag a forearm across your forehead. Useless. Your skin is slick with sweat, and now your sleeve's just sticky too. The soil beneath your feet is no longer cool. It radiates heat upward, adding to the already heavy air that clings to your body like damp linen. Each breath you take is thick, flavored with dust and the faint sweetness of rotting plants. Still, you work. You don't stop. Because stopping means more work later. And the Nile doesn't wait. When it floods, everything changes. And when it doesn't, well, you don't like to think about that. You stab your hoe into a patch of earth that looks promising but proves stubborn. You push. Harder. A root, maybe. You twist, drive it deeper, and then hear a crack. Not the root, the tool. You freeze, slowly lift it. A splinter along the handle. Still usable. Barely. But now you'll need to be careful. You mutter under your breath words the priests probably wouldn't approve of and set it down. The ground seems to mock you. Cracked and dry in one corner, squishy and slippery in another. That's the rhythm of the Nile's temper. The annual flood should be a blessing. It leaves behind fertile black silt, the reason Egypt even exists. But it also floods unevenly. This year, the water crept in late and too low. A weak flood. That means more work for less grain. Again, you dig anyway. And then the heat hits that next level, the one where time slows down. The world doesn't just feel hot, it feels suspended in heat. Your skin starts to tingle, your vision wavers. You blink rapidly, trying to shake the shimmer from your eyes. Everything glows a little. Even the dirt, especially the dirt. You stop. Just for a moment. Just long enough to lean against your hoe like it's a walking stick. You close one eye, then the other. Maybe just for a few seconds, but no. No sleeping. Not here. Not now. Not under this sun. You glance toward the canal. There's a low, rhythmic creaking sound. Another farmer, lifting water with a shadow. The old pivoting pole with a bucket on one end and a counterweight on the other. You've used one yourself hundreds of times. It looks easier than it is. Hauling water, swinging it over the edge, dumping it into a ditch. Then again and again and again. It breaks your back in slow, invisible ways. You shuffle over toward your own channel. It's still flowing, barely, enough to wet your rows. You pick up a stone and toss it into the ditch to break up a clump. The splash is pathetic. You crouch, cup some water in your hands and splash your face, then your arms, then the back of your neck. It helps. A little. You remember a saying your grandfather used to mutter, "Ra gives, but he doesn't give shade." That old man had a dozen sayings like that. Most of them involved gods who seemed only half interested in helping mortals. Nearby, a patch of grain leans awkwardly to one side. You move over, crouch and inspect it. The stems are thin, pale, thirsty. You run your fingers through them like hair, checking for mold or rot. None. Just weak. You press the dirt near their roots. Dry. Too dry. You sigh and grab your digging stick, poking shallow holes to help the next watering seep deeper. It's fussy work. Boring. Repetitive. But you've seen entire crops die from shallow watering. Just because the top looked wet didn't mean the roots ever drank. And then, you hear laughter. High-pitched. Children. You straighten. Slowly. There, near the far edge of the field, two boys are running. One of them holds a stick like a spear. The other is making roaring noises. They're pretending to hunt something, maybe a lion, maybe a crocodile, maybe just a bad day. You watch for a moment. Let yourself smile. Not because it's funny, but because it reminds you what joy used to feel like. What it still could feel like, if only you had a little less to worry about. Or maybe a few more hours of sleep. The children vanish behind a thicket. Their laughter trails off, and the heat returns like a blanket thrown back over your shoulders. Historians still argue whether farmers in ancient Egypt truly experienced such intense seasonal cycles of labor, or whether temple records exaggerated the struggle to flatter the administration's relief efforts. But you don't need records. You have your joints, your scars, the blackened nail on your left thumb from last season's crushed finger. You remember all of it. You reach for your hoe again, the cracked one. It still holds, for now. Back to the grind. You work the rows with a little less power, careful not to snap the handle completely. One eye on the field, one eye on the sun, one eye on everything you can't control, which is most things. You hum again, a new tune. No words, just rhythm. The same rhythm as your motion. Lift, swing, dig, lift, swing, dig. The world shrinks to the sound of your tool, the rasp of your breath, and the rising hum of flies that seem to grow bolder with the heat. One lands on your cheek, you swat. Another buzzes near your ear, you swat again. You shake your head and laugh, quiet, tired, and just a little mad. This is life. This is every day. And there are at least 6 more hours to go. The sun arcs higher, not slowing for anyone, least of all you. By now your body has accepted its fate. Movement without pause, pain without protest. Even your thoughts begin to simplify. You are not a man or a woman or a child or a God's creation. You are just hands. Hands and feet and the occasional sigh. The irrigation ditch needs your attention again. The silt has clogged a bend, and the water's backed up, bubbling sluggishly like a pot left too long on the fire. You pull your tunic higher to avoid getting it soaked, though honestly it's already drenched from sweat, and step into the muddy flow with bare feet. The coolness is a sudden shock, almost divine. You crouch low, scooping muck with both hands, tossing it up onto the dry bank. It slops out with a thick, wet smack. Your fingers sink into the black silt, rich, almost buttery soil, gifted by the Nile's ancient moods. It smells like rot and life at the same time. You wonder if the pharaoh ever smells this. Probably not. He has someone to hold the incense. Once the blockage is gone, the water resumes its lazy journey across the channel. You nod in satisfaction and step back out, wiping your hands on a nearby clump of grass that protests silently. A fly immediately returns to buzz around your face. You've long since stopped shooing them away with energy. Now you just twitch. You take a moment to glance across the horizon. The fields stretch out like a woven blanket, some neat and green, others patchy and gray. Far off, you see the shimmer of heat dancing on a distant hill. The desert lies beyond, always waiting, always watching, as if daring the Nile to disappear just once. You return to your rows. Your cracked hoe holds for now, though each strike feels like rolling dice. You try to strike softer, but there's no such thing as gentle agriculture, not when the weeds grow faster than the grain. You pause to gulp water from your gourd. It's tepid now, the kind of warm that only emphasizes how thirsty you are. Still, you let the water linger in your mouth before swallowing, savoring its dull nothingness. Water is water, and water is everything. A neighbor passes by, carrying a basket on her hip, her shoulders stooped forward like the letter C. She nods as she walks. You nod back. There's no need for words. You've said them all before. And then, a shout, far off. You both turn. A group of farmers is arguing near a gate. The shouting grows louder. A donkey brays. A man points. Someone throws something. A clod of dirt, maybe. Nothing serious, just the usual. Arguments about water access. Whose canal runs first? Who's stealing flow behind the other's backs? You've had those arguments too. Once you even threw a stick. Missed, of course. And then you had to share your grain to make peace. Grain is better than bruises. But still, you glance nervously toward your own channel, just in case. It's flowing. Barely. Another hour passes, maybe 2. Time has lost all its corners. Your arms ache, not with sharp pain, but with the dull, bone-deep soreness of long labor. You switch sides occasionally, trying to give one shoulder a break. It helps, for maybe 3 swings. Now you bend low to inspect the barley. It's starting to show color, green with a hint of gold. Not ready yet, but close. You pluck a stalk, roll it between your fingers, sniff it like an animal checking for rot. Not bad. Could be worse. You hear the rustle of papyrus. Not growing. It doesn't grow here. This is too dry. But someone's carrying a scroll. A man approaches, walking slowly, the scroll tucked beneath one arm. He's dressed too cleanly to be a farmer. Probably a scribe sent to record yields. You nod politely as he walks by, and he nods back without breaking stride. Behind him, another man, this one in military linen, follows, spear in hand, sunburned but upright. That's the real message. Work. Be honest. The kingdom is watching. Historians still argue whether Egyptian farmers felt proud to serve the pharaoh or just afraid not to. Temple walls tell one story, how the common man labors with joy for divine rule. But your shoulders know better. Pride and fear are old friends. They ride the same cart. You let the officials pass without comment. Their sandals leave crisper footprints than yours. You wonder if the gods notice that. The sun is starting to dip now. Not by much, but enough to change the light. Shadows stretch, colors warm. The gold returns to the barley, more intense now. The air still clings, but it doesn't crush. You feel for the first time in hours like maybe you'll survive the day. You hear a buzz and swat reflexively. This time it's a beetle, not a fly. It falls, flips, rights itself, and trundles off like it has important business. You chuckle softly. Scarabs are sacred, or so you've been told. But sacred or not, they still annoy. You kneel beside a ditch and scoop a handful of damp soil, pressing it into a ball. Too loose. Needs more water. You add a little from your gourd, watching the soil shift. You mix it by hand, feel it change. This is the part they don't carve into temples, the part where your fingers become tools, and your back becomes the calendar. Another farmer joins your row. A young one, maybe 16. His steps are hesitant, probably new to this or lazy, or both. You don't greet him, not yet. You let the silence weigh a bit, let him feel the pace. He glances at you, then at the field, then mimics your motion, just slightly off. You sigh, and begin to show him. Because someone showed you once, and someone will need to show someone else again. The Nile flows, the barley grows, the sweat dries, and the work never ends. The light is turning amber now, like honey spilled across the land. You stretch your spine slowly, one vertebra at a time, feeling the bones crack like dry branches. The ache has become your companion, but even companions can become too much. You finished your last row for now, at least the part that matters. There's no such thing as finishing, not truly. There's always more to dig, more to weed, more to move. But for the moment, you've earned a pause. You sit on the edge of a stone outcrop, toes digging into the soft earth. Your feet throb. You press a thumb into your arch and wince. You watch the younger workers still in motion. Some bend awkwardly, tools too heavy, too unfamiliar. Others move with ease, though not grace. No one's graceful after 9 hours in the sun. The oldest ones aren't even pretending to hurry anymore. They know the land doesn't reward speed, only consistency. From your spot, you can see the Nile in the distance, glinting like a silver ribbon. It's receding now. The inundation season is long over, but its memory lingers. You remember the floods, violent, powerful, necessary. When the river swelled and swallowed the banks, you had to leave, wait, and hope. Sometimes it brought rich silt, sometimes it brought snakes, and once it brought a crocodile into the village canal. That was a day. You remember the panic, the running, the screaming. The thing was huge, dark and ancient looking, like a god with teeth. No one died, thankfully, but it took your neighbor's goat and everyone's peace of mind. Now, though, the river is tamer, controlled, split into canals and branches and ditches, still powerful but less wild, like a lion taught to purr until it doesn't. You sip the last of your water, shaking the gourd to get the final drops. It tastes dusty. Still, it's enough. For now. You glance toward the horizon. The overseer hasn't called for end of work yet. He's still pacing the rows, hands behind his back, head tilting from side to side like a crane watching for fish. He carries a staff, not to hit, just to suggest he might. The real power is in the threat. You remember once years ago when someone didn't work fast enough. The overseer didn't raise his hand, but he did speak to the temple clerk, and somehow next month that man's family received fewer rations. Coincidence, they said, but everyone else picked up the pace. Historians still debate how much freedom Egyptian farmers really had. Some say you were free men working your land with pride. Others argue it was little more than seasonal bondage. When the Nile gave you crops, the temple took your hours. Either way, your knees don't care. The young boy from earlier sits beside you now, breathing heavily. His hands are blistered already. He doesn't say much, just stares at his feet. You hand him your gourd. He accepts it gratefully, forgetting in his exhaustion to offer anything back. You let it slide. He'll learn. A hawk circles overhead, silent and distant. Somewhere nearby, a jackal yips once and goes quiet. The sounds of day begin to fade, the buzzing, the digging, the clatter of wood against stone. In their place comes a different kind of noise, the creaking of joints, the murmur of conversation, the beginning of laughter. You hear a song start up, half-hearted and tuneless, but it spreads. People need rhythm, even when they're tired, especially when they're tired. Someone lights a torch near the tool shed. Not for light, it's still bright enough, but for the smoke. It keeps the mosquitoes away. You walk toward the edge of the field, your muscles complaining with every step, and hand your hoe to the boy. He looks confused. Clean it, you say, then hang it. He nods, gripping it like a priest might a relic. You wash your hands in a nearby trough. The water turns brown, then gray, then clearish. You splash your face too, letting the cool sting your eyelids. The lines in your skin hold the water like tiny rivers of their own. You blink and feel a grain of sand under your eyelid. Rub it once. Too tired to care. Then comes the whistle. 2 short bursts from the overseer's reed flute. The signal. Work's done. You don't cheer. No one cheers. You just move. A slow migration of the weary, shuffling like ghosts toward the village path. On the way, you see 2 girls carrying bundles of reeds. They smile when they see the younger boys, teasing them with sing-song voices. The boys ignore them. Badly. You walk past the stone marker, half buried now, that marks the edge of the farmland. It's covered in old hieroglyphs, something about protection, or prosperity, or probably taxes. You never really stop to read. Your sandals are coated in dust. Your tunic clings to you like wet linen on clay. You smell like effort. Still, you made it. The sun is a sliver now, dipping low behind the palms. The sky above shifts from gold to rose to purple, like the gods are painting it for fun. You feel your body relaxing, even before the village walls come into view. Your shoulders loosen, your fists unclench, and your mind begins to wander. There's still dinner to think about, and maybe mending your sandals, and maybe, just maybe, telling the boy a story tonight. If your voice holds out. Your feet follow the same worn path they always do, past the scrubby acacia bushes and the stone-lined ditch, where frogs sometimes hide in the mud. The sun is melting away behind the hills now, and long shadows stretch across the path like sleepy cats. The air smells of dust, sweat, and something faintly sweet. Maybe dates, maybe crushed grass. It's a quiet moment, that time just before the village fully wakes up again. You pass the reed fence marking the outer edge of the homes. It's more patchwork than defense, really. Crooked, repaired again and again with bits of whatever was handy. You once used an old sandal as part of the binding. It's still there. That was a proud day. The village itself is small. Dozens of homes, maybe 100. All flat-roofed, made from thick, sun-dried mud brick. They stay cool during the day and warm at night, more or less. The walls are soft to the touch, like stone mixed with sponge. You walk past one where children have etched doodles into the lower plaster. You see birds, a boat, and something that might be a cat or a god. Hard to say. Your house is near the middle, close enough to the granaries to hear the grain criers in the morning, but far enough that rats are less of a problem. It's 2 rooms, One for sleeping, one for everything else. You don't even notice the cracks in the walls anymore. Enter text. Inside it's dim but familiar. The fire pit is cold. Your wife is already back. She worked a different field today with the flax group. She nods at you but says nothing at first. The silence is not cold, just mutual exhaustion. You sit beside her on the mat, letting your body settle like sand in a jar. You don't move for several heartbeats. Neither does she. Eventually, the little one scampers in. Your daughter. Hair like reeds in the wind, feet dirty, eyes bright. She's carrying a clay bowl with something steaming in it. Lentils mostly. A few bits of dried fish. Not much, but you've had worse. You accept it gratefully. The meal is slow, quiet chewing, soft sighs. The child chatters occasionally about her day, about a beetle she chased or the neighbor's goose that tried to bite her. You listen with half your brain and smile with half your face. It's enough. The walls of the room glow faintly from the oil lamp in the corner. Shadows sway, dancing over the low table and up the soot-stained ceiling. You trace one shadow with your finger on the floor. You used to imagine they were spirits. Now you know they're just oil smoke. Maybe both. Depends on who you ask. Somewhere outside, someone starts a song. Not the working songs. These are softer, more like lullabies. They drift through the night air like incense. You recognize the words, though the tune has shifted. Songs change from village to village, even from generation to generation. But they all remember the Nile, the giver, and the taker. After dinner, you lean back against the wall, eyes closed for a moment longer than necessary. Your wife begins to stitch something by the firelight. You listen to the sound of thread pulling through fabric. It's strangely calming. You think about tomorrow, the same tools, the same fields, maybe some minor repair on the irrigation channels. The temple clerk might stop by to check the grain quotas. He always comes in the afternoon, always smelling like too much incense and not enough humility. There's a scholarly debate about just how centralized these grain quotas were. Some say every family was carefully tracked by the state. Others believe it was more relaxed, with temple officials taking rough tallies and letting favoritism do the rest. You know this. If you fall behind on your share, they notice. Whether it's fair or not is a different question. Your daughter tugs your sleeve. She wants a story. Of course she does. You sigh, half smiling, and stretch your legs. Your voice is raspy from the dust, but you manage. You tell her about a time when the Nile forgot to flood, and how the people tricked the gods into remembering. You leave out the famine part. She's still young. As you speak, her eyelids flutter. She leans into your side, thumb in her mouth, head nodding. Sleep comes for children like an ambush. Sudden, total. You shift gently, laying her down on the mat. Your wife gives you a look. Not a smile exactly, but something soft. You step outside for a moment. The night has deepened now, cool and still. The stars are brilliant overhead. No clouds, no noise, just silence and sky. You spot Orion or something like it. In your language, it's not a hunter. It's a boat. Everything is a boat. Even the gods sail. You think about those gods. Ra, who rides his fiery chariot across the sky each day. Osiris, who waits in the land of the dead. And Thoth, scribe of the heavens, who might be writing your day into his scrolls even now. You wonder if today was interesting enough to make the cut. You stretch once more, letting the cool air touch your skin. The village is quiet. Only the frogs and crickets are still hard at work. You envy them a little. You slip back inside and lie on the mat beside your daughter. The walls seem to breathe with the warmth of the day. You close your eyes. The last thing you hear is the wind, brushing gently through the date palms outside like a mother stroking her child's hair. You wake up before the sun. Again. Your body knows the rhythm better than your mind does now. It's still dark, but not for long. There's a hush that only exists in these few moments before the world stirs, the in-between of sleep and labor. You stretch slowly, careful not to wake your daughter, who's curled up like a kitten beside you. Outside, someone coughs. A door creaks. The village exhales. Your wife is already up, kneeling by the fire pit, coaxing the embers back to life with soft puffs of breath and a few dry reeds. The light flickers on her face, gold in shadow. She hands you a cup of barley tea, more warm water than tea really, but it's comfort enough. You step outside and breathe in the scent of the earth, the dampness of the river not far off, and the faint smell of animals waking up. The stars are fading, drowned slowly by the pale blush creeping over the eastern sky. Time to start again. You and a few neighbors move as a group toward the fields. There's a kind of comfort in that daily procession. The same faces, same dusty path, same tired jokes. One man claims his goat is plotting to kill him. Another says he dreams of being reborn as a fish so he can finally avoid taxes. You chuckle, but your eyes are heavy. As you walk, a few older women pass in the opposite direction, heading toward the temple. They carry baskets of offerings, bread, onions, beer. One of them hums a hymn. You nod in greeting, but they don't look up. Their eyes are focused somewhere past this world. The fields wait. Today you're working on the irrigation channels again. The floodwaters have receded, but silt has clogged the ducts. If you don't clear them, the barley won't drink. You wade into the muddy water with your shovel and start scooping. Your legs sink with every step. Leeches are a constant companion, not dangerous, just annoying. You flick them off with a practiced flick of your fingernail. The sun rises higher, heating the back of your neck. Your linen tunic clings to your back. The water stinks faintly of decay and algae, but that's normal. You remember once as a child seeing a crocodile sunbathing near the far bank. You screamed. Your uncle laughed. It didn't move. Still, you've never forgotten the way its yellow eye blinked, slow and judgmental. There are no crocodiles today, just dragonflies darting above the surface like tiny blue sparks. You work with rhythm. Scoop, toss, step, scoop, toss, step. Each movement automatic, ingrained like breath. The labor isn't glamorous, but it's important. No water means no grain. No grain means trouble. Historians still debate how much grain the average Egyptian farmer was allowed to keep. Some believe up to 60% went to the state or temples. Others argue families kept more than we think, especially during good flood years. What you know is simple. Some years, your pantry feels light, and the scribes still smile as they take their share. Around midday, you take a break. You sit under the shade of a sycamore fig, its roots tangled like the beard of an old priest. You chew on flatbread and onions, swig a little fermented date drink from a clay bottle. It's warm, slightly fizzy, surprisingly strong. You wipe sweat from your brow with the corner of your sleeve and lean back, listening to the buzz of insects. One of your neighbors pulls out a small flute and starts playing. The tune is lazy, meandering like the river. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. For a moment it feels like you're floating. No work, no quotas. Just sound and sun. But the moment passes. They always do. You're back at it within the hour. This time you're reinforcing a section of the bank with bundled reeds. They keep the earth from sliding back into the channel. You wedge them in with your foot, tamping the ground until it holds. Nearby, someone drops their shovel and curses. A sharp yelp follows. Bitten by a snake? You rush over, heart pounding. But no, just a thorn through the sandal. Still, it's enough to make everyone jumpy. One man starts muttering a prayer to Wadjet, the cobra goddess. Another spits 3 times over his shoulder. Better safe than sorry. Superstition is survival. You finish the day caked in mud. Your arms ache, your fingers raw. But the channel runs smoother now. The water gurgles happily as if grateful. On the walk home, a dust devil whips across the road, spinning reeds and sand into the air. You cover your face, laughing with surprise. It passes quickly, leaving only footprints and confused goats behind. Back in the village, you pass the public grinding stones where two teenage girls are crushing emmer wheat with rhythmic effort. Their palms must be like leather. They stop just long enough to wave. You nod back. There's a commotion near the well. A jug has cracked. Someone's water ration is lost. People argue, but no one yells. There's a kind of tired acceptance. Clay breaks. Tempers fray. Life continues. You duck into your home. Your wife has prepared something for your hands, an herbal paste from a local healer. It smells like mint and vinegar. She rubs it into your knuckles without a word. You flinch but don't stop her. Pain is temporary. Her hands are cool and steady. The little one is drawing on a broken pot shard with a piece of charcoal. She shows you proudly, a stick figure with a giant head. You assume it's you. You laugh. Dinner is quieter tonight. Everyone's exhausted. You eat slowly, chew thoughtfully, let the day settle in your bones. Later, as the sky darkens, you sit on the roof with your wife. The stars emerge, hesitant at first, then all at once. You point out a few. She names them differently. She says one is the Eye of Horus, another, the Boat of Amun. You don't argue. You sit like that until your daughter starts crying below. Some dream has unsettled her. Your wife sighs and heads inside. You stay. The wind is soft. The world is calm. You let your eyes drift closed. Just for a moment. Just until the next dawn. You wake again to that same rustling hush, the quiet churn of the village gearing up for another round under the sun. But today, the sky carries a heavy gray weight. It's not storming. No. Rain is a rare luxury in this land. But the clouds are thick enough to soften the edges of the light. The sun hides behind gauze, and for once your eyelids aren't squinting from the moment you step outside. It's a good omen. Maybe. Today is market day, which means no digging or bundling reeds. You've already packed the clay jars of lentils and a bundle of woven mats your wife made. Tight, even work. Good enough to trade for some fish or maybe a strip of